Okay. So recording started. So this is the first slide in S3. And S3 is basically when you create a bucket, right? When in S3, everything is buckets and files. So under buckets, you can create files and directories. You can consider this like, you buy a big storage or a big external hard drive, right? And attach to your computer or your network. And that becomes a shared storage available for your computers. Or at least one computer can access it, right? So in that, the whole disk, you can call it like the S3, and we create multiple partitions or volumes in that, and that you can say it's like buckets. Under each bucket, you can create your own directories and files. You can create your photos. You can store your photos and all the text files or whatever, resume and whatever you want to store. So it's similar to that, but here it is only accessible from your own computer. When S3 in S3 it is accessible throughout the world, wherever you are, where you have internet access, and it gives you a unique namespace. Unique namespace meaning you can compare it with the website address. A website address is unique, like email address. So similarly, for each of your S3 buckets, you get a universal namespace. And with that name, you can access that if you have privilege on that bucket. And that bucket, you can share it with others. And the file that you store in S3 is durable, highly durable. It's up to 11 nines, okay, 99.9999 times. So that means used one, there is an analogy. One file, the chance of one file getting lost is out of 1 billion files, I think. So that is the durability of S3, because it stores in multiple availability zones. One file, when you upload, it's by default stored in multiple availability zones. That's why you get that high durability.
It is redundant. That's what you mean?
Right. Yeah, multiple copies are stored, and one is lost. You still have 2 other copies available. And availability wise also, because it is redundant, it is a highly available service, up to 99.99% available, and it is secure as long as you enable the security on that. And you can also enable version control. So one file, are you able to see my slides? So
yes.
Yes, Arun.
So version control you can enable in case by mistake somebody deleted a file, you can retrieve it from the older version. Or somebody uploaded a wrong content, you can retrieve from the older version. And you can also enable the multi-factor authentication. So if somebody wants to access a file, you'll get a notification in your phone, and only after entering that you can retrieve the file. So that is the next level of security. Literally, there is no limit of how much file you can store. You can store any amount of data in S3.
Or this is right.
Yeah.
Availability perspective. If I intentionally delete the file, not intentionally, sorry, by mistake, I deleted the file. Though it has copies in other regions or multiple copies are available, if I delete a file, automatically the file will be deleted from other locations as well, right?
Right. Yes.
In that situation,
yeah.
How is it possible to retrieve the data like a trash can of the computer or something where you can go and get it back? If so, how long that will be available?
Now, if you intentionally deleted a file, you wanted to delete it, right? And you deleted it.
No, no, not intentionally. Sorry, I said by mistake.
By mistake. So
By
by
mistake,
mistake
we delete the
also,
file.
once it is deleted, it is gone. But if you had enabled version control, versioning of the file, it's not, it is, taking a copy of that file. So if it is only one version that you have deleted, maybe even that's a possibility it is gone. But if there are multiple versions have happened, you will have an older version available. We'll try to recreate that situation and see if
Okay,
we can recover it or not.
Do you guys hear echo when I speak? I'm hearing an echo.
No, I don't
I
hear
speak.
echo.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And so the bucket names that you create, right? So everything starts with the bucket in S3. So it's like your drive. That name is global. So you can create a bucket with a name, say ATR Academy. Then somebody else cannot go claim that bucket name because it has to be, unique, and it has to be globally unique. So the name is reserved only once. Next, the storage can be stored in different tiers of storage class. When you say storage tiering, you have a very frequently accessible storage, and some data you don't want to access very frequently. You put it in an infrequently accessed storage bucket. And some data you access only in 5 years or once in 7 years kind of data, especially when it comes to healthcare industry. They have to keep the data for up to 7 years or 10 years based on the government's complaints, and those files will be stored in a different storage class called Glacier. It is recommended to store it in Glacier because it will be stored in a different tier of storage, which may be not hot storage, and it will take a while to retrieve the file. So when you have to retrieve the file, it may take hours, minutes to hours. It may take 1 hour to retrieve the file, but it's only for compliance purpose, so it's okay. It can take that long. So that is the tiering. So Glacier and Deep Archive are two different types of archiving files. Okay, so Glacier is for archiving short term, and Deep Archive, right? Glacier Deep Archive is for long term. This may be a quiz question. Glacier is for a short term, and it will take minutes to hours to retrieve. Deep Archive takes 12 hours, up to 12 hours, I think, and it is even cheaper. And it is fit for use cases where you want to retrieve the files very rarely, once in 5 years kind of situations. Ignore the third point. That is my copy paste problem. And cross-region replication is when you want to have high availability DR setup, disaster recovery setup. Something happens in the West Coast, you don't want to lose the data just because the AWS region is gone down completely because of fire or flood or earthquake. So you want to have a copy in another region, East region. So you set up a cross-region replication, which actually doubles your cost, obviously, because you will occupy double the storage now. And also any data that is getting transferred from one region to another region, that additional cost also you have to pay. In AWS, when you bring in the data from your on-premise or your data center into S3, you don't pay for the data transfer cost. So ingress data, they say. Ingress meaning incoming. There is no data transfer cost. Any data that goes out from AWS, suppose you are downloading a file or running a report, whatever data is getting transferred from AWS to your computer or to your data center, you have to pay for that. And also, like this cross-region replication, where their data is getting transferred between two different data centers or two different regions, there is additional cross-region replication data transfer cost, but it provides you good protection. And there are two levels of consistency, right? Let's see what is consistency. You write data into your database. The moment you write your database, data into the database, say insert into, and then you say commit, right? In SQL language. When you say commit, the data is actually made permanently available in your disk, which means any other user, including the person who committed, can read the data. They will all see the same data because the data is consistent. It is made consistent. So the moment you issue the commit, it is immediately consistent. Okay. So what is eventual consistency? Anybody wants to take a guess? Give it a try. What is eventual consistency? It is a term used in NoSQL databases very often. Cassandra, DynamoDB, those kind of databases. Okay, so eventual consistency is the data will become consistent, but not immediate. Eventually, it will be consistent, but not immediate. So what does it mean and where does it help, right? So let's take some examples to compare and contrast between immediate and eventual. You are transferring, say, $100,000 from your bank account to your another account, from checking account to your savings account. So the transfer will happen and the data will be available either in checking account or in savings account at any point of time. It will not be available in both accounts and it will not disappear either, right? So it is consistent the moment it is committed. Or another example could be you are shopping online at Amazon.com or at Costco.com, and whatever items you are paying, you have shopped and you are making a payment. That payment is committed immediately, and that transaction is reflected in your credit card or bank account that you have paid immediately, and the merchant also will realize that there is a payment made into their account. So that is immediate. Where the data criticality is very important. It has to, it has a financial impact if that data is not persisted or not consistent immediately. What is eventual consistency? Yeah. On the other hand, you are sending a message to a friend in WhatsApp and it did not make it on time or it got lost somewhere in between, and it is not crucial. There is no financial transaction involved or anything. It can be tolerated for a time, maybe for up to 10 minutes, maybe up to 1 hour, or even if it did not make it to the other person, also it is okay. You can resend it. So those kind of data transaction complies with the eventual consistency. Okay, so that's the difference between immediate and eventual consistency. S3 supports these two consistencies for writing your files. So for when you create a new file, it it complies with the immediate consistency. You write the file and then you will read it immediately. You will see the file within that microseconds. It will be immediately consistent. Whereas you delete the file or you overwrite an existing file, so what happens there is eventual consistency. It is not guaranteed to reflect that change immediately. It will sync up, but it will take few seconds or few milliseconds. That is eventual consistency. And in terms of the size, you can store from 0 bytes files, and the maximum file size can go up to 5 terabyte. And how do you pay? How does AWS assess the cost for your usage of S3 service? It's based on the amount of data that you store. That's the size, and how much data you access. Right? Remember, I told you for any data that you retrieve from AWS S3, you have to pay the cost. So based on those two items, you will pay to the service. So let's see what are all the storage tiers. Regular S3 is there, and then S3 IA. IA stands for infrequently accessed. You don't need to access those files, but you want the file to be highly durable. You will access maybe once in a day or once in a week, once in a month. So you are categorizing as a infrequently accessed. So the difference is the cost. Durability and high availability SLA all remain same, but AWS handles in a different way, maybe in a different tier, different class of storage, and reduce the cost for the customer. So you don't have to pay the same as the premium S3, but you will pay half of it maybe, and you can save money. And then there is something called RRS, S3 Reduced Redundancy Service, which I think is obsolete now, but it's good to know. I think it got stopped. They don't have that storage type anymore. It's also similar, reduced redundancy. So the word says reduced redundancy. So instead of writing into 3 places, they will write to maybe 2 places. So you get to save some cost. And S3 one zone, S3 one zone IA. So the zone, availability zones, right? When you say one zone, it is written into only one availability zone rather than writing into 3 different zones always, which is the case with the regular S3. So why you want to write in one zone? Because something that you can reproduce, right? When it comes to some scenarios like where you have an input picture, like Vadivelu, got burnt out completely, and he is standing and wondering, and you want to put some text, okay, the memes that we see, right? What the hell happened to my country now, or something like that. Now you have the picture, you know what to put in the picture to create the meme. So use the input storage and then use the text and create the output picture. That output, you store it in one zone, right? Why you want to store the output in one zone? Because it is easily recreatable. Once you have your original picture and the text, you can create your final meme with the text any number of times. Do you need to store in 3 places? Probably not. You can just store it in one place, and it is going to be temporary. If you need, you can recreate it. and you save a lot of cost in that. So that's a use case for one zone where you can recreate the files easily. And other features, we already talked about the consistencies. So the first one, read after write, which means read immediately after write for putting new objects, right? So that's for creating new objects. That's called the immediate consistency. The eventual consistency supports updates, deletes, all those operations. And some cases you have, for example, you want people to go through your website, or you want to know who are all the people who have access to these files. So in those cases, you generate something called a pre-signed URL. It's a special URL with some signature kind of strings attached to that URL, and you give it to people, and people can access that object only using that pre-signed URL. So it supports that kind of security tracking mechanism in S3. So many times what happens in my regular day-to-day life, I will be recording a meeting. The customer will say, "Hey, can you record this meeting? Because I want to listen to it later." So we will record the meeting. And then the customer say, "Hey, I want that recording of that meeting." Now, where will I store it, and how will I save it? I mean, where will I save it? How will I share it? Is I'll put it in my S3 bucket and then create one pre-signed URL and send that pre-signed URL to that customer, and the customer will be able to see that file. Not the others will not be able to see that. And I can set expiry time for that URL. After that, the customer will not be able to download it. So I can keep it for 1 day or whatever, 24 hours. Then the last one is performance part. You want to upload, say, 5 GB of data. So in your program, you can say, you can call, there is something called Multipart upload API in S3. If you call that API in your program, your file will be uploaded in chunks, in parallel threads. Maybe it will run 3 or 8 threads, and each thread will continuously upload by reading the chunk of the files. So if it is 8 terabyte, it will get uploaded faster as if it is only 1 terabyte file with 8 threads. I'm just taking the number 8 for example. It can be anything. And about the Glacier for long-term archival. So we saw the use cases like compliance purposes, especially when it comes to medical, healthcare industry, financial industry. They have to keep the records for auditing purpose. So they will store it in the Glacier, and it is cheaper, and they can retrieve it when they need to provide the data to the government or agency for any reviews. And then,
if I remember correctly, initially you said Glacier for short-term archival and deep archive is for long-term archival.
right, yes. So that is.
But here it says long-term data archival, Glacier for long-term data archival, the first bullet.
Yeah, it is a relative terminology. Glacier is for long-term. Deep Glacier is for a very long-term, I can say. So Glacier, you can use it for 1 to 3 years. It's up to our use case. We can design it. And deep archive, we can store it for 5 years, 7 years, or 10 years kind of things. The difference is it is cheaper. The longer the term, you put it in deep archive, which is cheaper, but it takes more time to retrieve the file. you can also store the data, the same data, everything in Glacier. It will come, the retrieval will be faster. Within an hour, you will get the file, but you will pay more. So the long term is a relative term here. Sorry for confusing that. And bulk retrieval, sorry for this typo. It is for, what is bulk retrieval here, right? Because you are going to pay for the amount of data that you are going to retrieve um, in these archival storages, right? In Glacier or Glacier Deep Archive, it is recommended to retrieve the files in bulk to your local S3 or EBS storage, and then process it over there, rather than um, re- trying to retrieve different files multiple times, which will increase your cost. So it is like restore the entire database and then pick the tables that you want to read the data from. Kind of similar example. So minutes to hours is the retrieval time for Glacier, and it is um, relatively cheaper compared to the regular S3. That's all about the main key things about S3. If there is any questions, we can talk, or we can get into some get into the console and do some real-time thing. Hope you can still see my screen. And here,
Aru, this is Buva.
yeah.
ஒரு கொஸ்டின் பக்கெட் கொஞ்சம் இன்னும் கொஞ்சம் எக்ஸ்பிளைன் பண்றீங்களா ஒரு தடவை?
Which topic?
Buckets.
Buckets. Okay. So buckets is like your drive or your file system in Unix. In Windows, you have drives, right? So you can have purposely named drives, right? Some drives you call it for data, some drives you call it for pictures, some drives you call it for music or media or whatever. So you can go and access the right files from the right drives. So same way, I want to create my buckets. I want to bucket my files in such a way that the name conveys it, or I can easily go access the files in that. So each S3 account, each AWS account, you can create up to 100 buckets. So in that 100 buckets, you can place those 100 buckets in any region you want. You can pick a region, Northern Virginia for my media files, and Northern California, I want to keep my data files, and in Europe, I want to keep my some picture files, because I have a lot of customers in Europe, and I want low latency to serve those customers. Or I want to keep my WhatsApp images in Mumbai region, Singapore region, because the users in India and Asia Pacific are more for WhatsApp. So I want to keep all WhatsApp related images in that region, so they get faster response, good user experience with latency, low latency. So you can, out of those 100 buckets, 100 bucket is a limitation per account. Okay, that's a quiz question. But if you want to create more, you can still put a request, and AWS might increase your limit. You can create more than 100, or you can have multiple accounts, and in other accounts you can create another 100 buckets. So once you have buckets,
Is there reason why there is a limitation of 100 buckets?
Everything there is a limitation. When it comes to the service, the cloud services, you have to have some limitation.
Now I can understand the storage limitation, right? So maximum this much or something like that. But probably when I organize the files, right, based on my business, I may want to create multiple buckets. That's why I'm asking this question. I can understand the bucket at the storage limit level, right? Then if you want, you need to pay for it, or if you need additional storage or something like that. But I'm not sure about why really there is a limitation for buckets, number of buckets.
If there are a couple of reasons, maybe to avoid any denial of access services, right? Say I run one script where I put it in a loop and I say create bucket, and I just say random numbers and letters, and I can create 1 million buckets in 1 hour, right? So I can kind of create some situation where the S3 is slow, or I take away all those bucket names that I can create some kind of scene over there. So if there is a limitation, it is possible after 100, I will not be able to create any more. So that is another thing. And also the 100 buckets is not just your limitation. Inside each bucket, you can create thousands of directories. It's your own bucket, and you can create hundreds or millions of your directories. I mean, there may be other limitations as well. And then each directories, you can create your own files in it. So for every resource, for let's say EC2 instances, for creating databases, creating S3 buckets, there is an upper bound. Or imagine there is a region in, say, Japan, where they have only 2 data centers, and there may be a limitation on the amount of storage available, or amount of the S3 storage available. If if AWS knows there is demand or need for creating 10,000 buckets for a customer for legitimate reason, they can arrange that. It happens many times. Customer wants to go live big time, and they want to have these many reserved instances, this much storage, this much databases available. They inform upfront 1 month or 2 months in advance. Hey, we are having a big launch. Make sure you have these resources available. And then AWS works in the back end and makes sure that the customer gets the services or the resources for that services.
Everything is under a bucket, right? So for instance, Cassandra or a database, RDS, anything will be under this bucket, right? Because it's all storage, correct?
No, it is not. So just to clarify, S3 is good to store the object storage, object type. What is object type, right? Any text file or a PDF file, Word file, CSV files, or pictures, media, song, those files you can store it. You cannot install operating system in S3. You cannot create a database in S3. But you can store CSV files in S3, and that can be connected as external tables into your databases like Redshift. In Redshift, there is something called Redshift Spectrum. So Redshift Spectrum is nothing but letting Redshift database access the files stored in S3. But that is a different concept altogether, right? It is an external table kind of mechanism, but you cannot create a database in S3. It is only for objects. What is object? It's
Oh,
the files that we use on a day-to-day life. So
okay.
the limitation on bucket doesn't impose any limitation on how much data you can store in your database. That has a separate limitation and it is not dependent on S3. Yeah, good question.
So, Aru, one more question, Aru. I know you said the file size is 0 to 5 terabytes. How about for the buckets? Does it have a limit or is it unlimited?
Okay, I don't have an answer for that.
Okay,
Per bucket file size limitation. Um,
right. Yeah.
I don't have that data. Uh, I have to read the documentation. There may be some
No
limitation.
problem, Aru.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
But it's
For
all
one,
paid, right? So whatever you choose, you have to pay for those.
yes, you have to. The file size can start from 0 bytes. You can create a file literally with 0 bytes in it, and you can go all the way up to 5 terabyte in each file. And then you can create several files of that size. And these
Okay.
numbers are
or one quick thing.
not fixed all the time. These numbers keep changing as the services improve. The next version they release, they may extend some of those limitations. Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, when you say the database, the creating database, only the database applications you cannot install it. You can install it the operating system. However, you can create the database files in S3 storage, right? For example, if I'm installing the Oracle, I have to install the Oracle application. When I create the database for Oracle, that I can use, for which I can use S3.
Yeah,
Not
so you
DB5.
cannot only create the databases in S3, you are right. You can create the databases in EBS storage, Elastic Block Storage, EBS storage.
Okay.
And then you can say, hey, I have the CSV files in S3. Load the data from that CSV files in S3 into the database. Or, you can do all those kind of integrations in S3.
Okay.
But in the database, you cannot say hey, create a table space with a data file sitting in S3. No, you cannot do that.
Got it.
Okay. All right. So we are in S3. And when you go to S3, okay. So have you all created your AWS account? AWS gives free accounts for 12 months, and there are limited number of services that you can create and use for 12 months. So please create your free accounts in AWS, and that's a good start where you can put your hands dirty, make your hands dirty, and learn things. Otherwise, just listening to the concepts, you will forget after 1 month. I bet you. So once you go to S3, see if you don't have any bucket, you can create. But for all the existing buckets, you see where the buckets are created. I can create in any region, and then the namespaces are common. That is why in the beginning it says there is no region. Same thing with IAM also, right? When you log into IAM, also in the beginning you will see it is IAM is always global. You cannot say that I want to create the user Aru in Northern Virginia and I want to create another user called Aru in Western Europe. No, it is common. So similarly, S3 is also the bucket names are common. So that's why you don't see a region. But when you create a bucket, you will be asked where you want that bucket to reside. This is because companies have the data residency requirements. the government might have enforced, hey, such and such healthcare company, say Kaiser Permanente, you cannot store your data in China region. Okay, you have to keep it within the United States region. So for those purposes, when you create a bucket, you have to say where it is going to reside. Though the cloud is like everywhere, you have the controls to keep things physically in what region. At the region level, you can control. So you will say what region you want to keep it. And why Northern Virginia used many times is Northern Virginia is the biggest, one of the biggest regions for AWS, and that's where all new services get launched first when they become generally available. And that's the one of the region that goes down most of the time also, people say. But they have a bigger footprint, and all the new services get launched over there. And let me pick something else this time, Northern California. And the price will change based on region. Sometimes, not sometimes, always, you want to create an EC2 instance. EC2 is a virtual machine computer, right? You have it in the cloud, and you can do all kind of computing over there. So if you compare the price of an EC2 between, say, Ohio to another EC2 instance in California, you will see a big difference because of various other factors that influence the cost. So that's another reason people choose the region for the cheaper pricing also. Okay, so having said that, why to put it in Northern California? Let me put it in Oregon. I can create, I have to give a name over here. Okay, Aru test. Let's see if anybody has taken it or not. And you can copy the settings from existing bucket if you want to, or you can leave it. It already exists. Okay, let me try another one. Okay, I got it. And here you see, you want to enable the versioning. Okay, it's going to cost you more because it has to keep multiple copies, but it helps many times.
So, or the bucket names are globally unique. I mean, not only within your account.
Correct.
Okay. And also another thing I'm seeing is that when I use the uppercase letter, it says it's not allowed.
Right, right.
Is there a reason why uppercase letters are not allowed?
When it comes to these global names, it is always one case, right, which is lowercase, just to make things simple, like including email to domain address. You cannot register a domain with a, one with uppercase, one with lowercase, like atr.org, one with uppercase, one with lowercase. It won't allow. It will, and the back end, it will convert everything into lowercase and check if it is there or not. Otherwise, it will lead the, I mean, it will mislead the people, right? It will create confusion. Make sense?
See, it makes sense, but it can make it like Windows, right? It can be case insensitive, right? Whether you use uppercase or lowercase, it automatically creates an uppercase in Windows, right? Or it's not case sensitive, but here they are not letting you use the uppercase letter at all.
Yeah, that is, it's a user interface or whatever, or ease of use kind of thing, right? I tend to go with what is available with Unix rather than what works in Windows. In Windows is made for a lot of newcomers those days, and then they designed with the use of ease of use, ease of access. But when it comes to something serious like Unix, you should know what you're doing, is the concept there. So if you create a name like with all upper and lowercase mixed, it is going to be created like that. That's how you want it. But in Windows, it will convert it. It assumes and it converts to uppercase or lowercase. It lets you do that. But when it even at Azure, it will be the same case. When you try to create any, though Azure is from Microsoft, if you try to create any common namespace based objects, they'll not let you do uppercase anywhere. But it's just a user experience, I think, where they want to validate it. So here you can, I don't know what is the server access logging, log requests for access to your bucket, which means for auditing purpose, right? So who all accessed this HR data bucket? Log all those access for auditing purposes, and that's going to cost you extra. And this is tags. You should know one thing, regardless which cloud you use, tag is a very, very common term. What is a tag, right? It's like a naming or label kind of thing, you can say. Like in your office, you have a chair, and in that you put a label saying, hey, this is for this floor, or this is for this area, this is for this person, or something like that, right? It does not contain any business related critical data or anything, but it has some meaning, some purpose to it. If you want, you can also run some business activity report on that, but it is mainly for identifying, classifying things like that. So here I can say department, and this is for finance, and I would say environment, right? And it is for prod. So what does this convey? I can later and see, hey, this has to be built for finance department, and this has production data, and you can take some actions on that, right? So these are other options. Object level logging, right? At the file level, whoever access what file and those things you can record. Many other things. You can lock the objects, the files permanently. Let's go with the default. Okay, I'll disable versioning. So for security reasons, by default, all the public access is blocked, which means the moment you create a bucket, it's not going to be visible for somebody who is, just browsing through or scanning. Hey, what are the buckets available in this region? They will not be able to see this. So that's a default behavior. You can disable it if you want to keep something very common thing in that. For example, I want to put all my logos in that. Okay, there is nothing confidential in that. The logo is pretty much open. So I can say all public access, I will not block it. I will just keep it open. So anybody can go look at it and take the file if they want. Or otherwise, I can by default keep it blocked. And this is permission. Okay, so we saw the permission already, the block and unblock. Next, just you are reviewing what you have configured and then create the bucket. Okay, so now this bucket is available. If you click on this bucket, you can, in addition to whatever we have configured, you can configure more security or those version control, everything over here. You can enable, disable again. You can enforce the encryption over here, right? The data has to be encrypted. So even if somebody copies the file, they will not be able to use that content. So you can change all those things again. Okay, here is something called static website hosting, right? What does this mean? This means you can have a website in your bucket. So that is something S3 is made it very simple. So what happens in regular case, right? When you want to set up a website, you need a computer first. And then you need a software, a web server software like Apache web server or Internet Information Server or something from Microsoft. You install that and then you configure it. Then you run that software as a software or service, whatever, and then people can access it. You have so many things needed, prerequisites to bring your website up. You need a computer hardware, and then you need the web server software, and then you configure and run it. But now S3 has made it so simple that you don't need to worry about any of those things. You just click this button and say, hey, yeah, I want to make this a static simple website. Okay, and just say what is your index file. That is the welcome file or the first entry into your website, and just save it. This is going to be your web server address. Okay. So I can open a new window. I don't think I can see it. Yes, because it is locked. So I have to go back.
Disabled, right?
Yeah. So the permission is blocked over here. So let me see. I'll open it up. And so because it is a security concern, you are supposed to acknowledge it. And there are 4 different level of security that you can enable, disable. Okay, now let's see. Okay, still access denied. Well, let's see. Access control list, public access. I'm saying everyone can access it. And what is that? List objects, and yeah, that's enough. Let me see now. Okay, so now it's a different error. It says key index.html is missing. It does not exist.
Okay.
So let's go back, revisit the security permission, right? We did 2 changes. One is public access, we said enable. And also we changed the block. Where is that? We said unblock. So here, which one made the trick? Now let's put back, block all public access and then try it again. So now I'm blocking all public access the most secure way, as I did earlier. Okay, so looks like both are needed. So you have to open it for public, both the places. Okay, but here you can do a fine grained.
It's step by step, right, Aru? So first thing is, it is kind of trying to make sure that whether it is first publicly enabled.
Yeah.
And then it looks for the access control list, whatever it is that you are looking at. It is kind of one after the other, not together.
Correct. Yeah. And I mean, it has more fine-grained access you can read later. So, but now the new error is that the index.html is not there. Okay, let's see if I have an index.html, which I can upload. Okay. So here is the index.html file. I have one sample file. Okay, we can upload it over here, this file. You remember there is AWS CLI I can use, correct? So I have two options, yeah, to upload the files. I go to overview and I can create a folder or upload files here. Or when sorry, this is, I meant to click on upload. So here I can say drag and drop, or I can click on add files and I can choose what file I want to, or I can use more the API based access, CLI based access. AWS S3 put index.html, right? Is it put or copy? Copy index.html into my bucket. What is that? Aru test 6. Let's see. Copy S3 local path S3 URI. So I cannot use the name that way. So there is a convention to use, I mean, to get the S3 bucket name. So let me click on here. See, keep forgetting it.
In properties.
Yeah, there is a way to access that.
I saw a copy ARN. Is that not the one, Aru?
Yeah, so I copied it. Oh, here. I had it in my buffer. But this is exactly not the syntax. Let me get help from your S3 bucket name syntax or URI.
Naming convention.
Yeah.
Right.
So this is the whole region, but where's my bucket name? So like this, your bucket name dot s3 dot, like that it goes. Okay, let me try that. Into, I don't want HTTP. Okay.
Also, you need a key, right? Or yeah.
Local path S3 URI. S3 dot region. Okay. Amazon.com / oh, that is S3, this HTTP form. Okay, so S3 colon / my bucket test 6 / okay. I can give the same name or it will take it. Okay, that did it. So you have to treat it like a drive, see, C colon kind of thing. And then the directory name. So let's go and see, or I can check AWS S3 LS root test 6. Yeah, there is a file. Okay, now let me browse it here. What? Access denied. You know why? Because this
File
file,
over permission.
yeah, the file that we uploaded does not have the permission. Let me refresh here. It will show the file here. So this file does not have a permission in it.
So by default, every object is having no permissions.
Yeah, that is the cloud or AWS standard, right? Where
Got it.
so there is one click, make it public.
Mm.
I select the file and go to actions and make it public. And say make public. Okay. Wow, there it is.
That's how you host this website.
You can host your own website, yes, without any server to
Static
maintain.
website. 20
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And actually, I'm helping another organization to build their static website. You must have known Dr. Prabhakaran from Washington DC area. He had conducted 3 conferences on Tamil literature. So for archiving those data, I'm creating S3 buckets to dump the video and photos and create one static website. And you know what? This name, we cannot give it to people. This is too long, right? What I can do is I can do a forward. I can do a forward and say, see, yesterday I registered another domain name, and I can say this new domain name I want to be forwarded to this S3 bucket. You see what I'm saying? And that domain name can be simple one, right? So I don't need to give such a long name to people. I can go and say this new domain name, whatever I registered. I can say forward the request coming from here to that S3 domain.
So basically, you use the S3 as alias for your registered web domain.
Exactly, yeah. So I can go there and I can manage the aliases over here. So for example, here I can say add a new alias record, right? Create record, and what kind of record you want to create. So that's another way. That's how we are doing it for that website. I'll show you that website. It is called ilakiam.org. We registered it, and it's pointing to one S3 bucket, and from there you can click and you can see all the pictures. You know, he doesn't have to maintain anything. He just has to go to Google Photos and upload the files, and that Google Photos link is shared in the index.html file. Make sense?
So it's a very simple website, right? Static. There is not. You cannot have multiple tabs, those kind of things.
Exactly. For that, you need to do some kind of development on your desktop or somewhere, and then copy all those files, right, after you develop that website, and put it inside the bucket, and grant the read privileges to public, and they can access it.
Okay.
But if you want to change it again, you redo the same thing. Yeah, it is not meant for that purpose. It is not a dynamic website. It's only meant for static website. Okay.
Cool.
So we wanted to see deleting a file. What happens to that? Right? We don't have versioning enabled. So let's go delete it then. Right? Gone. Now there is no way I can access it or bring it back, because where else I'll go?
Yeah, we are humans, right? Tend to make mistakes. Even our computer have a trash can, right? Where if you by mistake we delete it, you can go and retrieve it.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So if I copy the same file again and refresh. So for folks who are done with this, this is something extra. We are trying it out. I'll share the quiz link. So whoever wants to take the quiz, please go ahead and take it. I'll put it in the chat window. Where is the chat? Where is chat? Okay. Okay. So you can click on that link. Make sure you are able to see the quiz and go ahead and take the quiz. If you don't have time right now, you can do it anytime later. And you can take as many number of times.
There is no permission.
No permission? Oh, okay. There was, because I created under Tamil Media domain. Okay, check it now, please.
Yeah, comes up.
Yep.
Okay. So that is set. You can take as many number of times you want, and this time it will show the result. Last time I messed up the setting, but this time it will show.
Did we do good last time?
Yeah, actually I checked the summary. It was good. Most of the questions were either 75% or 100% right answers. I did not check who did what, but I checked the summary.
Yeah, I got an email back today. Today or yesterday, I got an email back with my result.
Yeah, yesterday. Yeah.
Oh, did you send that? I didn't see any.
Yeah, I released that result yesterday. So here, properties, storage class. So you can change. And when we talk about the storage class, right, you can also have a life cycle policy. What life cycle policy does is you can say, if this file is sitting for 30 days, move it to the next cheaper storage class. And where is the, I'm looking for versioning. Oh, versioning is at the bucket level, right? So I go to the bucket level and then go to properties. It's not at the file level. So another thing, right? So if you want to keep some files versioned and some files you don't want to version, you can keep them in separate so buckets. Enable versioning. Okay. Let's see how it works. Now I re-upload the file and go to the file. Select from. What is this? Oh, this is to run SQL queries on your files in S3. You remember we said you cannot host a database on S3. You cannot create a database on S3, but there are other tools which can process CSV files or TXT files and give you results, right? That's what it is. You can run some SQL queries on this, and you can get the results. There are some tools called Athena, which can run simple SQLs on CSV files. You don't need a database engine. So those things can be done on this. Okay. Now let me Oh, it says latest version here. Okay, here it is. So once I click on that file, you see here, it shows the version number here. And you can go back to different versions. Oh, so the one we deleted is also,
That is also there.
yeah.
Right.
And I can download that. And you can purge from the versioning here.
So did you select the versioning as part of the setup, or is it default?
No, default is, yeah, default is no versioning. But how, I don't know how it versioned this file.
Yeah, you deleted or put it back. Probably that may be the reason.
Let me delete this file deleted. Now let me go here, refresh. So file is gone.
Oh.
So now there's no file. So let me do one, maybe 0. Index.html2 index.html.ilactium. Okay. Copy it, and then I'll use Notepad and zero this content out, or just keep only this much. Okay.
Say hello or something.
Yeah. Then now I upload this file. Okay, it is uploaded. Refresh. So I see this file. Now I have these versions. So there's a delete mark. So to retrieve the file, you need to simulate a file, right?
Okay, if you put the same file, then you can see the old versions.
Yeah, then you see the old versions.
So you need to have the file in place to see the versions.
Right. Some
But
dummy.
Aru, you deleted only 2 times. It's showing 4 versions now. How? Because you saved it one more time. That's why.
I don't know about this first one. That still puzzles me.
Click on that and see. You can see the content, right? If you click on that,
I can see or download. Yeah, this is the version. There must be open view. So let's open this. So it says version ID equal to null. You see that?
Yep.
And whereas if I see this one, it says it has a version ID, valid version ID. And delete marker is delete marker when it was deleted. And this is the new one. It has another version ID. But if I go to the old one, there is no version ID. But let's see if I can download.
Yeah, probably that may be the reason. I mean, initially there was no version, so when you deleted it, there is no delete marker. When you're versioning it, it keeps those information.
Yeah. It says it downloaded. Index.html. Here it is. Okay. Show in the folder and open Notepad. Yeah, it brings back the old file, original file, though it didn't have any version ID. Right. So now let me upload another file. Copy index ilactium. Index ilactium.org to s3:/ bucket name. Upload failed. An error occurred. Why? Index.html.elegant occurred access denied when calling. If I do it this way,
The file is not there.
it
Oh,
failed. Upload failed. From command line, it failed. From here, it is working. But that still puzzles why it was failing here. S3 copy.
So that the newly created file does not have access permissions, Haru?
No, even when the file, even when the file was not there, I was not able to copy. When the file was not existing, because so mainly what I wanted to test was to check the version number. When I click here,
Correct.
it only has one version, and when I click on that, it has a version ID. So for the file which has the file has been created after versioning is enabled, it has a version ID. Otherwise, it was still having a copy of old version with version ID equal to null. Okay, so that's something I learned new. I don't know why it behaves like that.